Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, as always, T-Dot and Theo. How you doing?
Good, thanks. It's been a while. It's been a busy summer, I think, for me, but not so much Chelsea in the transfer window. I think I've mentioned it to you many times. I was not missing the football earlier on this summer, but given that we've got Premier League fixtures this weekend, I'm getting excited now. Excited but nervous, and that's how it always is as a Chelsea fan. But no, I'm not too bad, thanks. And how are you doing?
I'm good. You know, like yourself. You know, kind of. I think throughout the summer it was a lot. It felt like a long one because we normally have like obviously we had the Women's Euros, but we have like a big enough tournament in terms of men's football to focus on. We did get that this year. So, but yeah, no, you know, apart from that, good. Kept myself busy. Good to be back. So yeah, I'm good. Not bad. Some transfers to talk about, but let's do the usual stuff. If you're listening on Spotify, you'll notice obviously I've made an error. Theo's pointed it out. I've got to point it out now because I can see it's going to do my head in throughout the whole stream. But this is not episode 64. This is episode 65. We are back for another season, which is good. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. Let's get straight into it because I feel like we've got to. Let's talk about some transfers first of all, because I feel like Raheem Sterling, Koulibaly are the two key ones that came through the door first before the sort of the youngsters came through. We've signed 3 18-year-olds in the past sort of 4 or 5 days. But talk to me about Raheem Sterling and Koulibaly coming in, who are two key players, I think, this season. What's your thoughts on them coming in as Chelsea players?
I think they're both statement signings, that's for sure. Raheem Sterling, we saw what he's capable of doing when he is given game time, whether that be internationally of England or at club level with Man City. And unfortunately for him, when he was at Man City, he was playing alongside Bernardo Silva, Riyad Mahrez, Leroy Sané before Aguero, Gabriel Jesus. So he couldn't play every single minute or every single game. And that's why I feel like at Chelsea, he will be one of those star players alongside maybe a Mason Mount, a Kai Havertz. So I'm really excited to see him at Chelsea. It's a player that I've really grown to respect across the years, and I think he's really matured as a footballer as well, compared to the player that we saw earlier on at Liverpool and when he was on loan at at QPR. Sorry, and he is a London boy as well. There's that story of him kind of growing up, I think, in Brent, and he could see the Wembley Arc from his flat, and so he feels like he's going back to the city where he grew up when his family still live. And I do think maybe it's the player the closest that will get to 20 goals, because that's what we really lack. We've lacked across the seasons, that player that can get 20 goals. We thought that the solution to that was Lukaku. Clearly wasn't. Second best was Mason Mount, but I don't think he got 20 goals. Maybe he did in all competitions. I can't remember the exact number. But he can potentially play as a false nine, as a winger. He's quite versatile. And he was fantastic at the Euros last summer. We need to remember that as England fans, he was fantastic. Got us to the final in a way alongside maybe a Kane. Koulibaly is the second kind of big signing we got, 31 years old. It almost feels like this one's come a bit too late, if I'm honest, because I know that we were linked to him in the summer of 2016, and he even admitted that he was in contact with Chelsea, but Napoli were quite reluctant to sell him at the time, and they were still reluctant to sell him this window. But he's a great player. He's looked really sharp in pre-season, making some big blocks, big tackles, and he's taken a big kind of, I don't want to say risk, but it's kind of big shoes to fill, or big kind of kit to fill. But he's taken a number 26 from John Terry with his permission. There's that famous video that's done the rounds on social media where he calls John Terry up in the back of a taxi and he gets his permission and his blessing, which is really nice to see. But no, I think in a couple earlier episodes, I said he was the defender alongside Delete that I really wanted to see us sign to replace Christensen and Rudiger. That being said, I still think we're short of a centre-back. We're definitely still short of a centre-back, but remaining positive, those two players that we just mentioned, I think are fantastic signings.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think, you know, in terms of Raheem Sterling, we know what he's about, and I feel like with this window, we've kind of gone, which I'm glad we've done this, but we've kind of gone for that Premier League experience. Take away Koulibaly for a minute, but in terms of who we've tried to sign, in terms of Rafinha, we look at Nathan Ake, another one that we tried to sign as well. Potentially Gabriel Jesus, last ditch attempt to try and hijack that deal. So I feel like we've kind of gone in with this idea that we need to get players that have played in the Premier League before. And I think Raheem Sterling is one of those players that, I think when Jack Grealish came in, it kind of signaled the end for Raheem Sterling. You just knew that he wasn't going to get as much game time. World Cup coming up, he wants to play as many games as possible. And like you said, he can play across the whole front three. He can play right, left, down the middle. We have lacked goals, and we've said that on how many occasions on here before. So to see someone that we know can score goals and could create chances as well, which is another thing that, yes, we've had Timo Werner, in spells he's done that. Kai Havertz in spells has done that. Hakim Ziyech, the off chance will do that, but to have someone consistently doing it throughout the season, I think is something that we've lacked. So I'm kind of glad we've signed him. I think 27, the age that he is, I mean, that's, he's definitely still got years in the tank. And I think that's something that, again, it is I feel like it's a bit of a risk, because the expectation, I think, for Sterling is that he is going to get that 15 to 20 goals, and he might not necessarily get that. But at the same time as well, as long as he creates the chances, I don't mind who scores the goals, I suppose is what I'm saying, as long as someone's scoring them. If it means that Raheem ends up with 10 assists or 15 assists, but Kai Havertz gets to 15 to 20 goals, I don't mind, as long as the front three are on the same page and they're working together. I think it will work. And I think the fact, like you said, he's come back from grew up north. He's been at Liverpool for how many years, and then gone to Manchester City, to come back to London. It's probably the right time for him. And I think he said that himself, that he couldn't have moved at an earlier point in his career because of this, like, loads of distractions, and he's now settled. He's got a family. He wants to be back closer to his own family as well. So it makes sense. I hope it works out. From what I've seen of him at pre-season, he looks sharp, which is good. Let's hope he can carry that on. But Koulibaly, for me, what a player. What a player. I do kind of agree with you that we've signed him slightly late, but then I do think in defense you can kind of get away with that as well. I think we've seen it with Thiago Silva, we've seen it with many other centre backs across different teams and leagues, that they can play as long as they keep themselves fit, which there's a question mark about that around Koulibaly, but as long as they keep themselves fit enough, they can play on till 34, 35. But even in the preseason game, Udinese, he looked really good. I was really impressed with him. There's not much to say. I mean, I can't even criticize, because we need centre backs. So, if it's Koulibaly, it's Koulibaly. I want to talk quickly about some of the signings that we in that sort of position that we missed out on. But one of them, first of all, was Rafinha, who it almost looked like, Fabrizio Romano gave us, I'm pretty sure he gave us the here we go, or he gave us close to as a here we go for Rafinha. Missing out on him, is that a big loss for us? Do you think we are going to struggle? I would assume he potentially would have played on the right side of that midfield, obviously with Hakim Ziyech potentially moving over to AC Milan. But do you feel like that's a massive loss for us that we missed out on that deal?
Yeah, I think if you actually go back to episode 64, we actually almost confirmed that we were about to sign him, and it looked like we were in the clear to sign him. But no, he's a fantastic player. He was playing at a very poor Leeds team. We have to remember that. But I think his stats and his numbers were pretty impressive, given the kind of poor quality that was around him. But I don't think it's that of a miss that we missed out on him. It wasn't an urgency, the position to strengthen. He's a winger. I think what we really needed was maybe a striker at the time, or centre backs, or maybe wing backs, but not another winger, especially that we just signed Raheem Sterling, or at the time we're about to sign him. I think it was more of a question of he wants to leave. Deco was entertaining Chelsea's offers, potentially, his agent being Deco. So I think that's what kind of maybe got our hopes up. But now that's almost a month later, I'm not that fussed that we've missed out on him, even though I think he scored a cracker in pre-season against Madrid. But no, I think there's plenty more players that we can still unlock something out of. We've still got Ziyech and Pulisic. They've been at Chelsea for 2-3 seasons now, and we still haven't really seen their full potential, I believe. This could be their breakthrough season. But I think had we signed Sterling and Rafinha, one or maybe the two of those players would have left for sure. So it's, I guess, but then again, like I always say, I trust Tuchel, the players he wants to bring in, and did he want to bring in Rafinha? He probably had a vision for that player, the position that he wanted to play, a system that would have suited him. So we'll see.
No, I do agree. I think I mean, look, Rafinha's a really good player. I think he's someone that does need to go and test himself at a big club, like Chelsea or whoever. But I think when Barcelona come knocking, especially if you're, a South American player or whatever, it is the place to go. We've seen it. I'm sure. I think I read somewhere. One of the reasons he went there was because of Ronaldinho, who I'm sure he looked up to as a child. So I get it. I get the move, and I do feel like in some ways we were just that sort of the bait to use this bait to try and get the deal done with Barcelona. Same with Dembele. A lot of clubs have done that. Delete done it as well, who I was going to move on to afterwards. But a lot of these players seem to have just used the fact that they knew that we needed players. They knew that we were potentially interested. They were flirting with us slightly, but didn't really have the intention to sign. And that's fine. I mean, I think if we can get the best, I kind of get what you're saying in terms of, I think you just said Hakim Ziyech, maybe Timo Werner, just mentioned their second seasons, but I think this is the real season for it. If we keep both of them, they've got to deliver because
Pulisic as well, the three of those players, yeah.
They've got to, because I think this is now, we're talking about 3 years almost, or 3 seasons at a club, and we haven't really seen a good peak, or we haven't seen,
consistency.
Or an increase in quality. And you'd expect to see that in a player, especially, the age that they are. They're relatively at that age where they can improve, or they should be improving, but we're not seeing that. And I think, the fact that clubs are willing to take, I think RB Leipzig are interested in Timo Werner, AC Milan are interested in Hakim Ziyech. You do kind of wonder, is their time over? I mean, I don't want to see them leave the club, but if it means that, we're bringing in players of better quality and they have to move on, then so be it. But I just think if they don't hit this season, the ground running this season, it could spell end of their time at Chelsea. What's your thoughts?
No, 100%. I completely agree. I think we said the same about Timo Werner last summer. We said we need to give him another season. Yeah, he showed glimpses of promise around maybe April time, but otherwise he hasn't really done much. He hasn't shown that string of consistency that makes you want to keep him in a team each week. The same can be said about Pulisic and Ziyech, and even looked like Ziyech at one point was about to sign for AC Milan. There's still time in the transfer window for him to sign for AC Milan. And even when we travelled to Udinese, I spotted he was the only player with a suitcase, almost like he was about to stay there for a medical. But no, I think it is now or never. There's a World Cup in November, December. These players will want game time. I don't think Thomas Tuchel can maybe promise them game time. So another reason for why they may be entertaining offers from other leagues or teams where they will get that game time. But all I know as a Chelsea fan is we can't afford to drop points like we did during periods of last season, or have players not perform consistently to the level that we expect them to. So I'd give them at even 6 months potentially. If they don't show that level, get them out in January and bring someone else in, like Liverpool did with Diaz, which was proved to be a brilliant signing. So there is that opportunity to get players in January to replace them, but I still want to give them a bit more time. I get an emotional attachment to players as well, so it's always sad seeing them leave quite quickly. But I do agree, it kind of feels like now or never.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a testing time. I do think there's still more twists in the tail in terms of transfers that are coming in, and the fact that 2 clubs now have been interested in Timo Werner. That story for Hakim Ziyech, AC Milan seems to have quietened down, but there's still, like you said, plenty of time for that to resurface and come back to light. But delete another player that we both were very, very ambitious about trying to sign, and hopefully we're going to get over the dotted line. It felt like we were kind of very close, but again, a big club, Bayern Munich, coming for you, you can't really say you can't really turn them down. I mean, we missed out on a big sign, and we've got to be honest. I mean, the age that he is, 22, I think 23, years ahead of him. Brilliant defender now, so you can only imagine in 5 years what that would look like. But missing out on delete, and obviously Christensen moving on, Antonio Rudiger moving on. Malang Sarr looks like he's almost going to Monaco now as well. So yes, we brought in Koulibaly. We still have Thiago Silva and Trevor Chalobah, you would assume, are your main 3 at the moment. And Purdue.
Has P still here for now?
Well, I'm going to get onto him. I left him out for a reason. And Purdue, which I think I read last night, late last night, he might be heading back to Italy.
La Spezia, I think.
Yeah, and this is on a permanent, I think, as well. So my question to you is, should we lose Azpilicueta and Marcos Alonso, which is very likely with the way Barca have been moving in this transfer window? If we lose both of them, and I think we've valued, now I need to get this correct, but I think we've valued both of them at 25 million for the pair, which seems a bit odd to me. But if we valued them at 25 million, Barca stum up the cash somehow. They get the money. They sell, I don't know, a couple of extra seats, which they seem to be trying to sell literally everything that's owned by Barca to third companies. But if they can gather the cash together and we lose both of them, I mean, another red flag at centre back, surely, because we're losing, arguably someone who can fill in at right centre back. Reece James can obviously play there. What happens? Because I mean, we were kind of in a position with Kyle Walker-Peters and Cucurella from Brighton who are coming in. Both can play centre back as well. I think Kyle Walker-Peters, might be able to play right centre back, or maybe put James at right centre back. But what do we do? Because I mean, it's not looking good at defence for us at the moment. I mean, and the season kicks off in 3 days.
Yeah, it just seems very messy. We're almost linked with more departures than we are with players. I think if we lose Alonso, we still need to remember we've got Emerson, we've got Chilwell, we've got Emerson, we've got Kennedy, and it looks like we're linked to Cucurella as well. Aspi, if we lose him, it seems like we're linked to Fofana. I know how much Leicester rate him. They want 80 million for him, and they're capable of getting that.
It's gone up by 85 now. As well.
85, and you saw that with Maguire, they managed to sell him for 80 million. So they don't sell their players cheap. They'll probably get the 80 million from us, or 85 million. It's just very confusing. I think the ones I really want to keep hold with are the youngsters that I feel have big potential. The likes of Ampadu, the likes of Colwell. Players that I think if you give them the chance in the first team, like we gave Chalobah last season, they will perform. They will deliver, especially Ampadu. He's so versatile. He can play all across that back line, CDM, midfield. And maybe we're entertaining this offer from Italy because he performed quite well at Venezia last season. Italian clubs are probably interested in his profile. He probably has the ability to speak the language better now and adapt in the country. But he's a player that I think would thrive in his Tuchel system. He's so versatile. And we keep mentioning the fixture pile-up and how it's going to be such a congested season. We're going to have to rotate. We won't have a choice. There will be injuries. We never know. There might be another spike of COVID. Players will catch COVID. They'll be in and out of the team. So we must keep him. He's a player that we can't afford to lose. Aspi and Alonso, I feel like it almost said they were saying their goodbyes towards the end of last season. So I think it was expected them to leave, if anything, earlier in the window. But I'm almost just sick of having to deal with Barcelona now. I think, and even Chelsea feels sick. Like, we haven't even mentioned his name, but Jules Koundé was another player we missed out on. Clearly, that transfer saga. I think we both kept quiet on Twitter because it was doing our heads in. I even muted the word Koundé for a bit because it was linked to Chelsea, linked to Barcelona, linked to Chelsea, linked to Barcelona. Yeah. But no, I think Cucurella, Fofana, if we get those two in and lose Alonso and Aspi, then it won't be the end of the world.
It's a good switch. I mean, Aspi, I think for the experience, I'd like to keep him because I think he's one of those players that he understands what Tuchel wants from him straight away. He's obviously, like I said, he's been at the club for how many years now, and he's won pretty much. In fact, he has won literally everything he can possible. Fofana's a good one. I like Fofana, and I read earlier we're ready to pay 200,000 a week, 85 million, which I think going rate, I suppose, for a centre back. Although I think he's in the last year of his contract, is he not? Now I don't know again if I'm correct on that, but if he is, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for you in your last contract. But it goes back to what I said to someone off camera. I feel like our recruitment this window has been very sporadic and very sort of unprepared. No plan. And I feel like clubs now have realised to the point we're at the point where they can almost say and demand what they want. And we're in a position where we go, well, okay, we've got the money. Clubs know we've got the money. And we're having to almost bow down to the demands because we know we need the players as well. So 85 million, if that's what it is, then I think we're at that point now because the season kicks off in 3 days. we're at that point where we really need to just say, yeah, okay, no problem, because we could end up in that position, which we've been speaking about for 4 years, and end up with loads of deadwood in 3 years' time because we panic bought, for the next 2 seasons or next 2 windows. So 85 million for Wesley Fofana, it's a lot of money, but we're at that point. If we do lose Aspie, we haven't got a choice. Now, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been mentioned as part of the deal to bring Wesley Fofana in, which I'd assume would bring down the 85 million. I think I said a few episodes ago that Ruben Loftus-Cheek was almost at a crossroads, and I think you said at the time, we should keep him cup games, and you sort of talked to me around. You sort of made me see a bit of sense, but I think that move would be really good if we got Fofana and Ruben Loftus-Cheek goes to Leicester. I think that'd be a really good move for him. I think he'd be able to shine in a team that the expectation isn't to try and win the league or try and get, the Champions League or whatever. It's just almost, you're at Leicester, you can shine and be a player. What would you think about that as a swap deal, as part of the deal? Because I know, like you just said, the attachment you get to players, especially the Cobham graduates as well.
Yeah, and he was one, I think every single Chelsea fan thought he'd be the next Lampard or the next Ballack. Yeah. So it would be a real shame to see him go, especially seeing that he never really picked up on his form after that terrible injury in that friendly in the US. I think he's still got a part to play at Chelsea. Like you just echoed what I said in the previous episode, the cup games. I think we even saw him at right wing back occasionally last season. Quite a versatile player. Pre-season, he's played there. He even scored in pre-season, a nice little chip, I think. I'm still very confused as to if Tuchel rates him or not. It's quite a confusing one, because if Tuchel really rated him, he'd be in the team every week ahead of maybe an out-of-form Kante, an out-of-form Jorginho. But instead, he's kind of, on the periphery, kind of not playing every week, playing the odd game when other players are injured or out with COVID. I still think he's got a part to play, but like you said, I just know that if he was to go to a Leicester or even back to Palace, he's been linked for a loan move back to Palace, then he would thrive. Yeah. He would do really, really well. He'd be the main man there. He would do very well alongside a Tielemans or Maddison, and less expectations as well to win the league or get top 4, but more just the ability to play his football, get that game time he needs. Maybe even for him, get back into the England team. He may be thinking of that. So it may be one that works for all parties, but the emotional attachment to me is just too strong to Loftus-Cheek. I'd rather give them a Batshuayi or a Ross Barkley instead.
Listen, I don't think we're going to get rid of him. I think he'll be at the club even as a free transfer. He'll still be there. We'll release him. He'll still turn up at Cobham.
Lampard wants them at Everton, I think I read.
I think it's died down. I think, I read that. And Barkley as well was another one. Billy Gilmore is one that I think will end up at Everton. I think he's destined for another loan, which is unfortunate because he, again, watching the pre-season games that he's featured in, I think it was maybe the second Udinese game. There was one on a Saturday, which is weird. It was like beating
behind closed doors,
behind closed doors, and he's brilliant, Billy Gilmore. It's a shame that he's got players ahead of him that are starting ahead of him, because I think if they weren't there, he'd be a player that you just have to put on every game. He's one of those sort of players. But there is 2 players I want to mention that we've signed as well, and I'm gonna start with the easier name first.
Pronounce.
So I might even mess this one up, so forgive me. But Gabriel Slelina, I think, is the Chicago Fire goalkeeper that we've signed, 18 years old. I don't really know much about him. I'm going to be 100% honest. I've watched a few clips. I've seen a lot of Chicago Fire fans over the last 24 hours literally say, Chelsea fans, you don't know what you're getting. He's a brilliant goalkeeper. Treat him whatever and all that stuff. And they've said they've raved about him. And the fact that we've signed him, it does feel like a Todd Bowley signing. I'll be honest. I feel like it must be, because I can't imagine Thomas Tuchel's been scouting in America. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but could this signal the end for Kepa, who we know we've both said is too good to be a number 2? Napoli look like they're almost ready to get a loan deal done, although we're paying 3/4 of the wages apparently or something. So
great deal for Napoli, isn't it?
Bad deal for us though. What's your thoughts on that? Because World Cup coming up, Kepa obviously wants to try and cement himself in that World Cup squad.
I think similarly to you, I'll be honest, I've never watched Gabriel Slonina play. He's 18 years old. We've loaned him back to Chicago Fire until 2023, which I think is when the MLS season finishes.
Yeah.
It feels very similar to when we signed Thibaut Courtois from Genk, and we then load him back for a season, then load him to Atletico. It worked out in a way. It kind of felt we got the best out of Petr Cech for a few more seasons until Courtois was ready to play for first team football for us. I wouldn't trust an 18-year-old in goal for us yet, especially I haven't watched him properly play. But if Kepa goes out on loan for a season, I think there's the African Cup of Nations. I can't remember if it's been changed.
I think it's in the summer now as well.
It might have changed, which is good for us because that means we get Mendy for a whole season. But I was going to say we're still going to need a keeper for the cup games. We haven't really seen enough of Bettinelli. True. We haven't seen enough of Bettinelli to kind of think, is he good enough to be our number 2? But if Kepa goes out on loan, it's almost like we need to bring someone else in, I feel.
Yeah, well, that was my second question. I mean, it's all in good. Slonina is coming in January, but that's 4 or 5 months away. We need someone, for whatever reason, Mendy picks up an injury that keeps him out for 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. Who's going in goal? So I feel like we do need to either keep Kepa until January, which would, for me, be the most logical thing you would do. You'd at least keep Kepa until January, loan him out to Napoli, come, Christmas, whatever the case may be. Whether Kepa wants to do that or he wants to go on.
He won't, because he wants to play for Spain at the World Cup, or at least be in the squad, I reckon.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm being selfish. Selfish. But yeah, we've got to bring in a second goalkeeper. We've been there before. We go back to, I think, when Hilario was almost classed as number 1 because of the injuries. I think maybe at the time to Petr Cech and Kudicini. So, we can't go down that route. We can't be that stupid either. But I'm looking forward to seeing Slonina eventually when we do get to see him, whether that's in the cup or in a couple of years, or which I think we brought him for that reason. We tend to do quite well with goalkeepers. So I'm assuming that recruitment's been done and we will see him in the next couple of seasons. But the other player that we have signed, I'm going to put my teeth in for this.
I'll let you make the effort here.
I'm going to go for it. Yesterday I called him Chucky, and I feel like that should be his nickname for now. Or just call him Dave again. If we get rid of Aspilicueta, we can just call him Dave. But I'm going to say Chukwuemeka or Chukwuemeka.
Chukwuemeka. Yeah, I think that's
Chucky.
about it. Carney. Let's call him Carney.
Carney. I watched him for the under 17s. I think it was in the Euros in the sub. That was one tournament I did watch throughout, and brilliant player. Now he's a brilliant player because of he's playing amongst players his own age at that point. But he has played the odd Premier League game, I think, for Aston Villa. He's obviously played a lot, during the cup games as well. He's a really good player, and if he can develop and adapt that into a team, which Thomas Tuchel's already said he's signed to play in the first team. He's not going into the development squad. He's in the squad for the next, however many months. We've got a player on our hands because he can play, I think the 6, he can play 8, he can play 10. He's powerful, he's strong, he's fast, he's good with his feet. He knows how to pick out a good pass as well. But I don't know if you know much about him or if you've been able to sort of pick up on certain games that he might have featured in.
Yeah, the first time I think I saw him was when we played Aston Villa in the League Cup at Stamford Bridge. I think it was 1-1, then he went to penalties, and he played in midfield for Aston Villa. I don't know if he was 17 at the time or he just turned 18, but he was impressive, really, really impressive. He dominated midfield, and Villa probably unlucky not to win that game in 90 minutes because they looked quite threatening at some point. I think he's 12 appearances for Villa last season across all competitions, links to AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, Barcelona. Clearly he's in demand, so he's got to be a talent. Yeah, they want everyone. Yeah, finally. Yeah. Maybe Barcelona were just mentioned because we were mentioned as well, so they kind of go hand in hand now, those two teams. Yeah. I think last summer I'm reading like a Premier League kind of preview magazine, and he was in the one to watch kind of youngsters. So it seems like we've got a real talent. I think it's a six-year contract, if I'm not mistaken. I think we've got a decent price as well, 18 million. Regardless of what happens in the next 2 years, that price will go up. Whether he goes out on loan, whether he goes into the first team. So it kind of came out of nowhere as well. We were never kind of linked to him. It was all of a sudden I just looked at my phone and it was the Chelsea fifth standard application. We've signed Carney, Chuku, Chucky. So yeah, really one of those players I'm really excited to watch grow. I know it may take a bit of time. But again, a bit kind of confusing for other midfielders that we've got in the squad, like Gilmore, like potentially Loftus-Cheek. What does it mean for them, especially if he's going to come straight into the team? So, but nevertheless, excited.
Yeah, and I always keep thinking, we've got the 5 subs, we've got those congestions in the fixture list as well, October and April, injuries, COVID, if it ever comes back, and it's a massive talking point in football again. So I kind of get it, and I know we've been screaming for depth, so I'm hoping it comes with that quality that we've also been screaming about, which I feel like we're kind of trying to get there. One other player in midfield that we have now been almost heavily linked with as well, which has been a topic for pretty much every week and every day since the season ended, is Frankie de Jong, who was very close to signing or may still sign for Manchester United. But from what Fabrizio Romano, again, many other sort of reliable sources has come out and said that we're in discussions, we're talking, between the clubs and player agents, etc. Now he can play CDM. I mean, he's not necessarily a CDM, but he can play there, and we kind of do need someone who can fill in that role as well. What's your thoughts about him? Because he's someone that obviously needs to technically leave Barcelona unless he wants to take a wage cut, I think, or he's got to sort of leave so they can bring out and register some of these players that they've signed. What's your thoughts on de Jong? Because he's obviously more likely to turn up. Yeah, he wants to go to Chelsea as opposed to United. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, his future is really up in the air at the moment at Barcelona. I think I read they can't afford to keep him because they can't pay his wages, but they also can't afford to sell him because they owe him 2 years worth of wages. From the pay cut he took during COVID or the delayed postponement of his wages. So I think that they need to kind of just push him out and try to sell him and maybe get Chelsea to pay that part of his wages that they were missing. They haven't been able to pay him. But no, like you said, quite versatile across midfield. We do need to plan ahead for the future in midfield, because I think this is probably the last season of maybe Jorginho and Kante together that we'll get. I think one of the two of them will definitely leave up next summer, especially if we want to get a decent amount of money for one of the two of them. And I feel like this is all the players that we've been linked with this window, a large majority of them, and those two 18-year-olds we've just signed. It almost feels like we are planning for the future. We are planning for the future. And that despite that we may be getting rid of some dead wood. I still hope Batshuayi, Barkley, Baba Rahman, Miazga, they all depart. So no, it'd be a good signing. But again, I think maybe it will be a ludicrous amount of money that Barcelona may want. I don't know if we can maybe tempt them with Azpilicueta or Alonso as part of the deal as well. Not a big history of Dutch players at Chelsea, other than maybe Robben and Boularus.
Yeah. He was. It's a good point. Trying to think, was Bogard?
Yeah. I think he was Dutch.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. There's not many, and I think I suppose my only worry about de Jong, brilliant player. I don't want to criticize and say he's not. I think we're signing him due to the circumstances, if that makes sense. We're signing him because he needs to leave, but we don't necessarily want him. He probably wasn't first choice for Thomas Tuchel, and I just think, are we signing him just because Barca need to get him off the books and he's available? If that's the case, then maybe for a season, 100% he does a job, or 2 seasons. But I can just imagine he was not top of Thomas Tuchel. Yeah. I mean, I'm as crazy as it sounds, maybe a Declan Rice is maybe top of Thomas Tuchel's list, but and especially the way we've been going in terms of trying to sign, Premier League proven players, then you'd probably say Declan Rice in that midfield. But my worry still is in our attack. I just don't see where the goals are coming from. And I watched the preseason games, and I don't know if you got to see many of them or catch up on some of the sort of games the day after, but there was nothing going forwards. I mean, we were making the odd chance, but I mean, if we went into a season, and bear in mind we got Everton first game, then Spurs, I think, Leeds. 3 tough games, and I think I said when the fixtures came out, they're quite easy. But if we're playing the way we're playing with no real striker, no one that's really going to score goals, then it's a worry. It's a massive worry.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And when I think we said what should be our priority for the summer, it should be getting in a number 9 who can get you those 20 goals, which was Lewandowski, which we really missed out on. I don't see where the goals are going to come from the squads. We're going to put a lot of pressure on Mount, Havertz and Sterling. And realistically, those players will get you maybe 15 to 20 goals, but not above 20, I feel. And then we'll have to rely on the wing backs again.
Jorginho
penalties. But going back to De Jong as well, I feel like you said, it's the circumstances that I feel are pushing us to sign him, because in midfield right now, we've got Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho, Gilmour, who's still in the squad, Gallagher, Loftus-Cheek, and this new 18-year-old Chucky. So
yeah, and throw Ampadu in there.
It's 8 players. So I don't really see how all of them are going to be happy with game time, with getting minutes on the pitch. So the move doesn't really make sense from a position perspective, but circumstances seem to really be pushing maybe Tuchel and Chelsea to try to sign him.
The only thing I can think as well is Thomas Tuchel thinking of a formation change.
4 at the back and add in an extra midfield.
Yeah, because I think he did that in some of the pre-season. I can't remember which game it was, but I'm sure he might have been the Udinese game as well. And I think we played 4 at the back. And I just think, is he realising now that he doesn't have the luxury to play 3 centre-backs every game, week in, week out, as he did before, regardless of whether Fofana comes in or not. He still maybe doesn't trust playing those 3 centre-backs and the 2 wing-backs. Chilwell, Chilwell's not going to be fully fit maybe up until maybe after Christmas in my books. He just doesn't. I mean, I watched him again pre-season, and he just, an injury like that, it's going to take you months to get back to the heights of, before the injury at Juventus. So I just can't see him hitting the full heights, and maybe that's why we're pushing for Cucurella to come in as well. Especially if we lose Alonso, you potentially maybe think Kennedy might go on loan somewhere as well. But I just think going forward, our attackers, I think there's 29 days till the window shuts. Things can happen. It's just, who do we go out and get? I think is the big question. 2
other players we haven't even mentioned, Hudson-Odoi and Armando Broja. Are they still going to be here come September? A loan maybe for Broja. I know he's been linked permanently with a move to West Ham. Hudson-Odoi, another player where you feel like he needs to step up. I know he's still very young when he's kind of the pressure was put on him very, very early, but he does have that potential, but we haven't really fully seen it consistently. So another player that you feel that if he is given the opportunity to play, he needs to really show that he's worked. He needs to be in a team every week. So I think almost our squad feels very slim, but also very, very wide with a lot of depth. And it's quite confusing for us Chelsea fans, because I don't think any of us can predict what the lineup's going to be on Saturday.
To be fair, I wasn't going to ask, because I think it's an unfair question to ask anyone at the moment. But one question I did want to ask is, and I've had this conversation again offline with other Chelsea fans, but it feels like there's a divide in terms of who is not to blame. I think that's the wrong word, but who is the driver behind getting these transfers done. Obviously, we've lost Marina Granovskaya, we've lost Bruce Bark, Petr Cech. That sort of recruitment strategy, the structure of how we do our recruitment is now sort of changed and shifted because of Todd Boehly coming in. Do you feel that a lot of the blame in terms of some of the signings that we missed out on comes down to the fact that Todd Boehly is now in that sort of director of football capacity as well as the owner? No one's sort of sitting underneath him to do that sort of job that he potentially should be giving to someone else. Or do you feel like Thomas Tuchel should be doing more? I mean, I've got my answer, but I'll let you answer first.
I think Tuchel, no blame should be put on Tuchel, if I'm completely honest. And I also think it's very hard for us to kind of judge this situation because we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And those deals 100%. That we did, all those deals that we missed out on, the likes of Rafinha, Jules Koundé, possibly Lewandowski. I reckon all 3 of those players just saw the kind of historic appeal of playing for Barcelona and wanted to join that club over Chelsea. So I think it's nothing we could have done in that situation. And that goes back to, you want a player that wants to play for Chelsea, that wants to play for the badge and what the club represents, not a player that says, okay, I'll play for Chelsea because I was rejected by Barcelona type of, you want that mentality of a player that's only has Chelsea in mind, which is what felt like when we signed Silva, and I think Lampard called him and said, I want you in my team. Same when Mourinho called up Cesc Fabregas and Diego Costa and drew them the team. Those were players that felt like believed in the manager's vision and they wanted to play for Chelsea. But I think a lot of those players we were linked to this summer was just almost like, we need players in those positions. Can we try to sign them? But like you said, they felt there was no clear strategy or vision. And I think that's maybe where you put the blame on Bowley, but definitely not Tuchel.
Yeah. I mean, I think I shouldn't even ask the question because it's a difficult one to answer.
Yeah.
And I did answer at one point and say that, we're not in the room, we're not around the table, we don't know what's being discussed, we don't know what. I mean, what I would probably say is that I don't think I can't put a lot of that blame on Thomas Tuchel for the simple fact that, for me, his day-to-day job is to make sure that the team perform on the pitch. And yes, he has a duty to, assist the negotiations and, call the players or hold a meeting. He did that, I think, with Chucky. I'm going to say Chucky again, but he did that with him. He showed him the vision. He showed him what he wants the team to do, and that sold it to him. Same for Raheem Sterling, same for Koulibaly. So I think Thomas Tuchel's doing as much as he can in terms of, speaking to potential signings and getting them over the line. But I think the fact that we don't have that, the setup that Liverpool have, the setup that Man City have, or even Arsenal. Arsenal have done really well this window. Even Spurs, they've done really well. So look at all those clubs who've got that recruitment strategy. Maybe Liverpool and City more because it works well. They plan, 3 years ahead. And they Darwin Núñez isn't a player that they expect to hit the ground running this season. Give it 2 or 3 years, he'll probably be, classed as world class because he's been at Liverpool under Klopp for that time. So I think, and again, I don't blame Bowley. I've always said I can't judge Todd Bowley on this window. I think for me, this time next year is when we'll know 100% what the direction we're trying to go in, because Todd Bowley has just come in. Restrictions were still in place when he was sort of appointed. They got lifted. You miss out on key transfers. Rafinha was always going to go to Barcelona. I think if that was his destination, he was going to go there. Gabriel Jesus wanted to go and work with Mikel Arteta. Edu's the sort of director of football, I think, there anyway. So it kind of made sense for him to go there. Lewandowski was just, I get why he went there as well. It would have been nice to have him, but it is what it is. And you got to think these players have got to be selfish as well, because yes, the sanctions are lifted, but there's nothing to say that there can't be a curveball in 6 months to say that the players aren't. I don't know. Something could happen with Chelsea again, and I think players probably avoided coming to Chelsea for that reason, because they'd seen the mess that we were in back in the last season and thought, well, I'm going to be selfish. I want to look after myself and
so sign for Barcelona instead, and they can't afford their wages.
Yeah, touche. You've banged it right there. But
I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
They Barca seem to be getting away with anything at the moment. But I just think, if you, like you said, if you don't want to play for Chelsea, then it's one of those things. I'd rather a player like Raheem Sterling, who came out and said, spoke to the gaffer. The gaffer said he wants me to be, an important role in the team and blah, blah, blah. That's what we need. We need someone who wants to come out and say, yes, I want to play for the club and I want to win trophies and all the rest of it. Koulibaly the same. And some of the players that have come back as well, I think Ampadu, Gallagher, Gilmore, they've all come back and said that Thomas Tuchel's been brilliant. He's integrated them into the team and wants them to do well, whether that's at Chelsea or, on a loan somewhere. So I think it's a difficult question and shouldn't really put anyone in that position, but I just wanted to get your views, because it has sort of split the fan base, and some people are blaming Thomas Tuchel for not acting in terms of getting a plan B if we don't get the plan A. But I feel like that should sit with the recruitment side of things, and that is, for me, isn't Thomas Tuchel's main role. But yeah, for me, as long as we get these signings, I don't care who's to blame or who's not to blame. Let's just get the signings in. Let's get the team ready for Everton on Saturday, which is what we're going to move on to now. Big game, big opening game.
I hate this fixture.
Yeah, well, this is why it's a big game. We don't have the best record at Goodison Park.
No, we don't.
I don't think we have a really good opening day game results. I'm thinking back to United, Burnley,
Swansea.
Swansea, maybe Coventry years and years ago. I think maybe we just don't have really good opening day games. And going to Goodison Park, Everton is a difficult game. Yes, they don't have Calvert-Lewin, and they have lost Richarlison. What's your thoughts going into that game?
It's just one of the... when you said we don't have a good record at Goodison Park, I can tell you we haven't won there since April 2017. So yeah, like you mentioned, there's two, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, as two players that often do like to score against us. So maybe that will work in our favour. I haven't seen anything from either team in pre-season that makes me think they're looking good, because I think Everton have been appalling as well in pre-season. I think they lost 4-0 to an MLS team as well.
Minnesota, I
think it was, yes. That being said, it's one of those ones where we could potentially play well, but Everton will snatch a 1-0 win. Or like a bit like the fixture last season, we could be woeful and they'll win it 1-0. I'm not too confident, if I'm honest. I think I'm not confident as it stands for the season as entirely, but more particularly this season, this fixture. Players that they've brought in, Everton, Tarkowski and McNeil, good players at Burnley, but Premier League experienced as well. So I don't know. I'm quite nervous, really nervous for Saturday. And like you said, all those times that we've dropped points in the opening fixture, and you just see all your rivals pick up the 3 points. It's agonizing. It's horrible.
It's a psychological thing as well, because you start the season on the back foot. You're already 3 points behind, a Liverpool or a City or Spurs, Arsenal, United, whoever. I think it's going to be a difficult game based on what I've watched of Chelsea. I haven't watched probably anything of Everton, but I just know their results. But it's Everton, and I feel like one of the key things that they have, and which worked from the back end of last season, was the fans. The fans almost become the 12th man. Get that team over the line, and I think they'll do that this season. I think what we saw at the back end of those last 4, maybe 5 games that they had, and they were outside the ground and flares and welcoming the team in. I think they'll do that now every game, and I think that will just spur them on a little bit.
Stadium bans now, I think, if you get on the pitch or flare. So
the ground should be empty at Goodison then. Pretty much all of them was on. I think it was Crystal Palace. It was all on the pitch then. But I think this is going to sound mad, but I think I suppose the only thing we can really take from this is probably get a draw. I mean, ideally, we should be going out to get the 3 points first game of the season. We have the better team, regardless of the players that we've lost, and the fact that we haven't really been the best at preseason. We've still got a better team, and we should be winning this game. Hands down. This is, they have Dele Alli in the team, and
he'll score the winner now.
That's going to come back to haunt me, isn't it? But I think we should win. Whether he goes for Broja, whether he goes for Raheem Sterling false 9, whether he tries to play Michy Batshuayi and just give him the opportunity to show him what he can do in the league, I don't know. I think it's hard to judge who's going to play on Saturday, but we just need to be defensively sound. And I think if it is Mendy in goal, he can't make those mistakes that he done last time, and he has to improve. And I feel like he's declining, which is really weird for a goalkeeper. That shouldn't happen as a goalkeeper. So for me, Mendy has got to be one of the best players on the pitch, regardless of who scores for us. It doesn't matter, because Everton they'll get chances, and they'll potentially score from them as well. So we've got to be careful of that. Mendy's
been shaky 100%, and he's one player that I think I call out a few times alongside even Pulisic and Havertz that need to step up this season. All 3 very good players, but I feel like they've almost grown too much in confidence that they've taken a step down, but they need to improve. One thing before we wrap up that I want to say is I'm just worried that we don't know what the starting 11 is going to be on Saturday. We don't know. There could be players like you mentioned, Broja, that starts. There could be Alonso and Aspi in the starting 11. Players that might not be there in a few weeks. And for me, that shows that we don't really have a clear vision or strategy yet, or we don't even know who's going to be in and out of the team. So maybe if those players that I just listed aren't in a team, then that indicates that they won't be there much longer, and we just go with the kind of the Chilwells, the Silvas, the Chalobahs. It's going to be quite interesting to see our squad, but I think you mentioned Batshuayi. I don't think he'll be anywhere near the starting lineup, if I'm honest.
Well, this is it. We don't know. We don't know. I personally, before I ask you that, big up Couch Critic. Big up fellas. Always good to hear from you. But yeah, it's a difficult one because we just don't know. I mean, who would you start? Would you start Sterling in that false nine? Would you put Broja in the team? Would you give him the opportunity to show what he can do? Is it a game that you can even trust Broja to play in? Opening game of the season. Yes, he played at Southampton, but the pressure's slightly different now that he's at Chelsea. It's a different expectation as to playing at St Mary's.
Yeah, I think I'd just go with Havertz false nine with Sterling and Mount, maybe either side of him potentially, and then over back five, the usual back five. Which I say the usual, we don't even know what that is anymore.
We can't have that anymore. We haven't got Rudiger.
No, we don't. So I would not be able to predict the lineup. I really wouldn't.
If I had to, before we wrap up, I'd go for Reece James, obviously Koulibaly. I'd go for Thiago Silva, Chalobah. That'd be my three centre backs. I'd probably go with Marcus Alonso, which is crazy. Just because Chilwell just doesn't look fully fit to me. I think he needs to be sort of weaned into this season. My midfield, no. I'd probably go with Kante, Kovacic. I think Gallagher's going to play some role. I think Gallagher's going to. I think Gallagher plays on Saturday. I don't know how or where. But yeah, my front three would be the same as yours. But I do think Gallagher. I feel like Gallagher's proven that he deserves a chance to play at Chelsea. Gallagher
and Kovacic in midfield, that's just full of energy.
It is, but then it feels like it leaves us too open. And I think this is where I think Kovacic loves to get forwards and Gallagher kind of loves to do the same as well.
You need a Kante or a Jorginho that can just sit in the middle and just
need someone in that middle. Yeah. And this is why I think the system's going to change. I think we won't play three at the back anymore. I think we'll go back to a back four, and it would probably just allow someone. You have your your two centre mids, and then you'll have maybe a holding CDM or whoever in the middle, just behind them, just sitting there, just mopping up all the messy stuff behind them.
Five subs, which will be good for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down somewhere so I don't forget. But yeah, 5 subs I think will definitely help as well to bring if we keep him, Billy Gilmore or Conor Gallagher or someone like that into the team as well. But before we quickly wrap up predictions, I'm gonna go 1-1. I think it's gonna be a difficult game. I think they'll score first. I think we'll have to dig deep to get something out of it. I think Everton fans will be running on the pitch after 93 minutes because they got a point. But what do you think?
I think it's going to be a point as well. Yeah. Point shared, and I'm going to go 2-2 there.
2-2, open game.
Yeah.
Open game. Well, this isn't episode 64. This is episode 65. So again, if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you go over to Spotify and click the follow button. You'll be notified of any podcast episodes. And if you're on the Spotify version of the podcast, make sure you go to YouTube, smash the subscribe button and the like button. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as well, and give us your predictions as well going into that game, opening game of the season. Theo, as always, thank you very much. Feels good to be back. Let's hope we have a good season.
Yeah, less weekends ruined by Chelsea, hopefully as well.
Well, yeah, there was a couple of them. I was going to ask you for your sort of prediction where we'll finish, but I think we'll give that at the end of the transfer window. We'll see where we are with the players that we've got, and then we'll give our predictions then. But as always, thank you very much for joining me. It's always a pleasure. Therapy sessions are back after a couple of weeks off. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode of From the Shed End podcast.